to get on that same nest, and there would be some more eggs. You had to be able to tell the fresh eggs from the eggs that were already under the setting hen. You follow me?
Yeah.
You don't follow me, it's okay. It's all right. So when these little chicks would hatch, I would fool these setting hen, I would cheat on these setting hen. I would take these little chicks, put them in a box with a lantern, raise them on their own, just give them to another hen. Get some more fresh eggs, mark it with a pencil, place them under their setting hen, and encourage the setting hen to stay on the nest for another 3 weeks. I kept on fooling and cheating on these setting hens, and when I look back on it, it was not the right thing to do. It was not the moral thing to do, it was not the most loving thing to do, it was not the most nonviolent thing to do, it was not the most democratic thing to do. But I was never quite able to save $18.98 and order the most inexpensive incubator hatchet from the Sizzler bookstore. I know all of you are so young. You remember the Sizzler book catalog?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, you're too young. Now, that big book?
Yeah.
Some people called it the Wish book. I wish I had this, I wish I had that. I just kept on wishing. But as a little child, about 8 or 9 years old, I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So from time to time, with the help of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we would get all of our chickens together in the chicken yard. Together in the hall. The chicken would help make up the audience, along with my brothers and sisters and cousins. And I would start speaking or preaching, and when I look back or look around, the chicken would start on their head, shaking their head. They never quite said amen. But Dick and Patrick, I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to in the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of my colleagues listen to me. And some of those chickens were just a little more productive. At least they really say, but that's enough of that story. When we would visit the little town of Troy, visit Montgomery, visit Tuskegee, I saw those signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. I would come home and ask my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, why? They would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way. Don't get in trouble. You go downtown on a Saturday afternoon to the theater. All of us little black children had to go upstairs to the balcony. And all of the little white children went downstairs to the first floor. I kept saying, why, why? That's the way it is. Don't get in the way. Don't get in trouble. But I heard about Rosa Parks in 1955 when I was 15 years old in the 10th grade. Heard about Martin Luther King Jr. Heard him on our radio speaking. Met Rosa Parks in 1957 at the age of 17. The next year I met Martin Luther King Jr. I was so inspired. But I wonder, they get in the way. They get in trouble. I got in trouble. Necessary trouble. As a teacher, I want to thank you for teaching. But we also must teach our young people, all of our young people. And it doesn't matter whether they're black or white, Latino, Asian American, Native American, straight or gay. They must be encouraged to get in trouble, to stand up, to speak up, to speak out. We learned during the early days of the Civil Rights Movement, when you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you got to do something about it. You have a moral obligation, a mission, and a mandate to do something about it. I remember in 1956, at the age of 16, so inspired by Rosa Parks, so inspired by Dr. King, that with some of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we went down to the public library, trying to get library cards, trying to check out some books. And we were told by the librarian that the libraries are whites only and not for colors. I went back to that same public library on July 5th, 1998, for a book signing for my first book, Walking with the Wind, and hundreds of likes and white citizens showed up. End of the program, they gave me a library card. As a young student, I wanted to attend a little college called Troy State College. It is now known as Troy University, only 10 miles from my home. Submitted my application, my high school transcript, and never heard a word from the college. I didn't tell my mother, my father, any of my sisters or brothers, any of my teachers. I just did it. So you know what I did? When I was 17, I wrote a letter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., told him I needed his help. Dr. King wrote me back and sent me a round-trip Greyhound bus ticket and invited me to come to Montgomery to meet with him. In the meantime, I had been accepted at a little college in Nashville, Tennessee. An uncle of mine gave me a $100 bill, more money than I ever had. Gave me one of those upright Foot Lockers, you know, the big trunk that you can open, bring it back together. Have the little curtains, the little drawers. I put everything that I had except my chicken in that Foot Locker. and took a Greyhound bus to Nashville, Tennessee. And after being there for about 3 weeks, I told one of my teachers that I've been in contact with Dr. King. This teacher knew Dr. King. They had studied together at Morehouse College in Atlanta. So we informed Dr. King that I was there. Martin Luther King Jr. got back in church and suggested when I was home for spring break to come and see him. So in March of 1958, by this time I'm 18 years old, boarded the bus, traveled to Nashville, to Montgomery rather. And a young lawyer, never seen a lawyer before. Dick had never seen a lawyer before. A young lawyer by the name of Fred Gray, who was a lawyer for Rosa Parks, for the Montgomery movement, and became our lawyer during the Freedom Rides and during the march from Selma to Montgomery. Met me at the Greyhound bus station and drove me to the First Baptist Church in downtown Montgomery, passing by the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, and ushered me into the office of the church. And I saw Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy standing behind the desk. I was so scared, I didn't know what to say or what to do. And Dr. King said, "Are you the boy from Troy? Are you John Lewis?" And I said, "Dr. King, I'm John Robert Lewis." And he started calling me the boy from Troy. And it was there that I made a decision that I couldn't turn back. Briefly, let me just say to you, I first came to Washington, D.C. May 1st, 1961. Had all of my hair, a few pounds lighter. 21 years old, the same year that President Barack Obama was born. Just think, in 1961, black people and white people couldn't board a Greyhound bus together. Here in Washington, D.C., be seated together, travel through Virginia, through North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, on our way to New Orleans to test a decision of the United States Supreme Court. We were beaten, left bloody, and left unconscious, left in a pool of blood in Rock Hill, South Carolina. A mob beat us in Montgomery at the Greyhound bus station. We didn't give up. We didn't become bitter. We didn't become hostile. Many of us had accepted the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence, as a way of life, as a way of living. We must teach our young people the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. My seatmate on the Greyhound bus that arrived in Rock Hill, South Carolina, was a young white gentleman. The two of us got off the bus, started in a so-called white waiting room. Members of the Klan beat us, left us lying in a pool of blood. On May 9th, 1961. Several years later, to be exact, February 09, one of the guys that beat us came to Capitol Hill in his 70s, with his son. His son was in his 40s. And said, Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you. I want to apologize. Will you forgive me? His son started crying. He started crying. They hugged me. I hugged them back. I said, I accept your apology and I forgive you. That is the power of the way of love. That's right. It is the power of the way of nonviolence. We have to create the beloved community where we respect the dignity and the worth of every human being. That's what the civil rights movement was all about. You can do it. You must do it. We cannot say that we cannot do it. We can do it.
Yes,
we can do it. We did it during the Mississippi summer. We did it during Selma. America is a different American. And some people say nothing's changed. I feel like saying, come and walk in my shoes. The signs that I saw in Alabama, in Georgia, in Mississippi, in Tennessee, that said white waiting, colored waiting, white men, colored men. Those signs are gone. Yeah. And they will not return. The only places our children will see those signs will be in a book, on a video, or in a museum. So we have an obligation to tell the story and give people this sense of hope and optimism. I'm very hopeful about the future. We have a lot of work to do. We're not there yet. We got to do something about comprehensive immigration reform. It doesn't make sense. There are 12 million people living in the shadow. Bring them out of the shadow. Said on one occasion, maybe our foremothers and our forefathers all came to this great land in different ships. But we're all in the same boat now. We have to look out for each other. The way of love, the way of peace, the way of nonviolence is a better way. Thank you so much for all that you do. Find a way to get in the way. Find a way to redeem the soul of America. Find a way to help create the beloved community, a community at peace with itself.